I had told everybody I was going to hike the mountain. I'd also made a promise to my dad I wasn't going to hike alone. And then last minute, the hiking guide emailed me and said, I don't feel good about the weather conditions and the snow conditions, and I'm going to pull the climb. I was like, it might blow over. I'm just going to see how far I can go. And it was starting to blow. There was ice and sleet coming in. There was a whiteout rolling up. I was in just kind of this semi-visibility where sometimes I maybe had 20 feet, sometimes I had maybe 20 meters, and then sometimes it was so close it was like 10 feet in front of me. So I started down, but I was also trying to make sure I didn't drift too far into a glacier and canyon down there that has claimed a number of lives and was something that somebody had warned me about, and so it was kind of there in the back of my mind.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of No Longer Nomads. I'm joined by my brother Tommy today. Palm Teas in studio. We've got a great one. We have on Mary and her dad, Bruce. Mary's got a fascinating story. She was on Mount Hood for 6 days and survived. And so this story you'll hear is so encouraging. It's emotional. And we just thank her and her dad for taking the time to be with us. We'll probably break this into two parts. So this is part one. Then definitely stay tuned for next week and we'll give you part two. But stay through the whole story. It's incredible. And thank you guys for jumping in. Last thing I'll say, get this book. Her mom wrote it. So Bruce Owen was on and her mom, Shelly Owen, wrote this. And without further ado, let's get to the show. Well, Mary and Bruce, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am pumped. I've actually been looking forward to this interview for, a couple months now. Very excited to make this work out. And thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having us, for sure.
Yeah, well, I'd love to just get a little bit of background. So, Mary, growing up, and Bruce, feel free to weigh in too, you were always outdoors. You always loved to go and get in nature. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we were raised homeschool and out in the Utah desert there. So my parents did a really great job of taking us to all these national parks when we were kids. And my mom would take us out camping, the big old family tent, and we'd pack up for the weekend and go out, or for our summer trip. So we grew up with all these amazing memories of being up in the mountains, of hiking, of seeing all these beautiful places. So it was just kind of in our blood.
Tell us about your family. How many siblings do you have?
I am the middle of 5, so I have 2 on either side. My brother says I'm the cream in the Oreo, which I'm going to adopt that.
There we go. I love it. So you love the outdoors. And when did you say, I want to start doing some bigger adventures? And was there, Bruce, from your side, was it a struggle to know like where she, I guess some boundaries or anything like that, or what's too much, is it overnight or through hikes or anything like that?
Well, the first, I was pretty much okay with, most of the things that were going on as the kids were growing up and stuff, and they had a lot of great adventures. But when Mary knew from a fairly early age that she was called into missions, and out of that grew a little bit of a point of view that we struggled between each other with. And so one of the things was, I think she thought, well, I'm going to get to this point and then I'm going to go into missions and then my life is going to be, serving in the mission field. And I don't know, she didn't think that was going to be adventure enough for her or what, but she wanted to do something really epic before she went into missions. And so she had originally said she wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail.
Okay. And
she'd never been on a long backpacking trip at that point.
I've never been on a multi-day backpacking trip.
Yeah. So I was concerned about her being that far away and in a position where if she needed help, I couldn't really help and stuff. And so we talked and we negotiated a little bit, and she ended up doing the Pacific Crest Trail, which is actually a longer trail from Mexico to Canada.
Yeah.
And I asked her if she would make sure that she hiked with a hiking partner and not be solo. So she found a partner to hike with her, and she did that. And so that was the first real great big adventure. And the other thing I asked her to do was to have a GPS
spot
locator.
Yeah.
And so every day she would, at the end of her day, she would send me a spot location, which basically just says, I'm here and I'm okay. There was also the option to say, I'm here and I need help, or this is 911 and I need the Army and the Navy to come and get me. There was all of that.
Send the Coast Guard.
Right. Yeah. And so every day I would follow her on Google Earth, and I would put a little pin in the map, follow her progress. And if I didn't hear from her for a few days, I'd get worried and stuff. But that was the first really big adventure. And it was really a successful thing. But I think that particular event is what gave her this great rush of, I want to be outside all the time, adventuring in the outdoors. Is that fair?
Well, I would say, so when I was 16 and then again when I was 18, I went to Papua New Guinea as a part of exploring the idea of long-term missions and what that looks like. So I was invited to go with my pastor the first time, and then the second time I went and worked the summer in the same location in Papua New Guinea. And so when I had come home from that, I had the travel bug, but I'd also heard from the Lord that I wouldn't be going back overseas until I learned to love my own people. And so I spent some years working, saving up for college, and just taking a little time to get my feet under me and figure out exactly what I wanted to do as far as my college degree went. And I had this little window, this hiatus between high school and college, where I figured I had a little time to do something neat. And yeah, I did have the travel bug. It wasn't necessarily that I felt like I needed to do something awesome in that time, but it was just that I was waiting for my scholarships and the tuition remission to kick in. And so I had this chunk of time.
Okay.
But I had read about the Appalachian Trail. And so that was the first thought that I had, was either driving around the country or the Appalachian Trail. And my dad was the one who looked up and found the Pacific Crest Trail. And
that's pretty incredible to do that. I mean, I've had some friends that have started. I'm not sure if they finished. But I mean, that's a feat. That's very impressive. So Tommy, my brother and I, we grew up in Colorado, love the outdoors, love the mountains, camping, hiking, all that. I mean, we were pretty close to some incredible outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
And so where are you guys? Are you in the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, we're currently in Newburgh, which is right outside of Portland, on the west side of Portland. But,
yeah, we live in McMinnville, which is about a half hour from here, but I work at George Fox University in Newburgh.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where we're at right now in my office.
Awesome. So
beautiful area.
Yeah.
Beautiful area. Yeah. We went and did the Rogue River, I guess, a little further south from you guys. I guess, was that 3 years ago? 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah. We grew up walking distance from the road, or we lived there for 9 years, something like that. But the heart of the growing up teenager years for the kids.
So we were rafting on the Rogue River and doing the hikes along the river there.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And it's cool that river's like a protected waterway, so there's no development around it.
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful.
It just stays natural,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Really beautiful, beautiful river.
Well, let's jump into, so when did you want to do Mount Hood? How long was that, feeling in you that you've got to get to the top of that? And tell us, let's start there, and we'll start making our way to your hike.
So on the Pacific Crest Trail, you actually hike around the knees of Mount Hood. And when we did that day, we had some friends come out and join us, and family. And we did a little bit of hiking with them, as well as just meeting up at the lodge there. And the day was really miserable. It was nice to have family and friends there, but once they had left us, we were just hiking through this thick, soupy fog, and it was just miserable. It was drizzly and rainy and just kind of soaks into your skin. And that was for, I think, about 24 hours. We were just hiking in that mess. Oof. And we got out on this ridgeline, probably about 24 miles down trail from the Mount Hood area there. And looking back, you could see the mountain, and it's just shining in the sunshine, looking so beautiful. And I was like, oh, I got to come back for you
Come
sometime.
to me.
Redeem this experience. So that was kind of the first time I thought about climbing that mountain. And then as I was going to school, I was working out in Hillsboro. And so I'd drive the highway coming in, and you can see the mountain just hanging out there in the sunshine. Every morning you drive in and watch it with the sunset going down on it every evening. And it's just beckoning for years as I was going through school and working. And yeah, so I mean, it was kind of just always there, being like, hey, come get me.
Yeah. I love it.
Is Mount Hood also the same place where there's like a resort on part of it, like a ski area? Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ski parks on it and a big old lodge up there, and the PCT goes around the border of the mountain.
Yeah, Timberline Lodge is the big ski resort there, and that's actually where she started her climb the day that she took off. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So you'd wanted to hike Mount Hood for a while. And so let's take us into preparation. All of a sudden you make plans to hike. Let's jump into that part of your story. You have some friends that you want to go hike with. Is that right?
Yeah. Over the years, I'd made a bunch of different plans to try to hike the mountain. I had a bunch of different PCT friends who were attempting it, and it was always at a time when I couldn't join them. I was in the middle of classes or just couldn't cut away for that weekend because I was writing papers or whatever. And it was really frustrating over the years because all these friends of mine would summit and I'd see the pictures. And finally, one time when I was out backpacking in the Sisters Wilderness with a friend, we bumped into a different couple of hikers. And this guy was a mountaineer guide on Denali and Mount Hood, and he'd climbed Mount Hood over 100 times. And he would do trips up and down Hood as training trips for hiking Denali. So we started chatting and we got his contact, and he said he'd be happy to let me know next time he was taking a trip up. And so that was kind of how I ended up planning on climbing the mountain that spring break, was that he was going to be taking a group up and I was going to be in that group.
Okay. And what year was this?
This is 2013.
2013.
Time flies.
So 2013, and was it springtime? Is that what?
Yeah, this is spring break at George Fox University.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
April.
Last week of March, actually.
Last week of March.
That's right, 'cause it was a really early Easter.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're starting to make preparations, and what happens next?
So then I had told everybody I was going to hike the mountain. I'd also made a promise to my dad I wasn't going to hike alone. And I told him I was hiking with this group. And then last minute, the hiking guide emailed me and said, I don't feel good about the weather conditions and the snow conditions, and I'm going to pull the climb. And I didn't tell anybody about that email. I just kept on as I was going forward to make the climb and completely forgot the promise I made to my dad. And I was in this very weird headspace where I was just so fixated on doing this that I had ruled out any other options. And I also wasn't talking to God about it because I knew he'd tell me not to. So I was just kind of like in this tunnel vision, like, this is going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. And nothing's going to stop me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this point, you decided you're going to go forward by yourself on this hike. Now, are there marked trails? Do you know about the path to get up there and to the summit and everything?
Yeah. So the climb on Mount Hood is essentially a walk up. There's not a lot of technical elements to that particular climb. There's a few crevasses that you cross, but there's nothing major. And I've actually done it. My husband and I did it a couple of years later, but the only part of the climb that's even remotely technical is the very final ascent, where there's a little ice wall that you have to climb up before you get to the summit ridge. And so it's something where if you know the basic route, it's kind of hard to go astray unless you are making big mistakes.
Okay.
But nevertheless, people do.
Yes. Well,
because there's a lot of fatalities.
A lot of the going astray part happens on the downward climb, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
when we went to Saudi Arabia in 2020, and there's a mountain there that they believe is Mount Sinai, and there's a lot of evidence that points that it could be. And so we had slept at the base of the mountain that night and summited, but our guide who took us up there didn't know how to get up. And so we kind of made the summit ourselves. But coming down, it took us all day. We kept getting cliffed out, so we'd have to go back up. We'd find another spot. This looks okay. You get cliffed out again. You got to go back up. And, as we get further into your story, I'm sure you can relate to that because it's pretty scary. You get up there and you're like, we're kind of stranded here. So anyways, all right. So going forward, you make plans to go, your buddies, they back out. And so you start to make preparations to go. What happens next? You pull the trigger and you start the hike.
Yeah. So I had a buddy who had lent me a vehicle because I didn't actually have a car at the time, or at least one that I didn't think would make it up there. And I initially went out to the Mount Helens wilderness to just try out what I had because I really didn't have full kit for climbing a mountain. I was working my way through college and didn't have a lot of extra cash, didn't have a lot of time where I wasn't in very good physical shape. And I just kind of wanted to try out my gear and try out where I was at physically as far as just kind of gauging things before I actually got out on the mountain. So I just went into the Mount St. Helens wilderness area there and was just kind of monkeying around on some rock and ice and snow just to try out things and see what I needed. And then after that, I drove back over towards the Hood area, stopped at REI, picked up some things that I felt like were absolutely critical. And that was, kind of drove me down to my last cent. So sure. I picked up the last thing I had a choice between getting batteries to put in my little GPS locator device or get a burrito to eat so that I would have fuel in my system for the climb. And I opted for the burrito and didn't put batteries in.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. What kind of device did you have? Was it like an InReach or something?
Spot finder.
It was a little Garmin. The spot finder was
for the PCT.
Yeah, for the PCT, it was a spot finder, but that one you had to buy a service for it. The Garmin was just a little GPS locator device thing. So it would have been for me to track my way up and track my way back down again to have a better beat on where I was in case of a whiteout or whatever.
Okay.
It wasn't a communicator though?
Yeah. So I had that on me, but it didn't have batteries.
Okay.
Now, how long are you anticipating this summit and return to take?
So I figured I'd give myself a day.
Okay.
Generally, when you summit, you want to go early in the morning and then be heading down before the snow starts to soften up in the middle of the day. So you want to be off the mountain before midday. So that was kind of my plan, that I would be climbing in the early mornings. And then I figured it would take me between 4 to 6 hours to summit, maybe.
Okay.
Just based on other climbs that I'd done.
So did you feel prepared? Because you did the PCT, so you know what it takes to do some intense hiking and backpacking. What did you feel like at this point? So
my approach to things has been something that causes people consternation because I'm not afraid, so I'm not cautious by other people's standards.
Sure.
And this has, like Dad mentioned, it has kind of caused some issues between us where it has looked at them like I was being reckless. I didn't feel like I was being reckless because I wasn't trying anything outside of the domain of what I felt I was physically capable of.
Because you didn't wreck.
Because I didn't wreck. And I kept not wrecking. And so I had this sort of invincibility syndrome just as part of things. But then when I was on the PCT as well, I learned that you could make do with a lot less than what people generally would say, oh, I need this, and this, and this for hiking or for climbing. And so I was very much a minimalist in that respect. And I really was not, physically, I was not as fit as I should have been. And I knew that, but I figured the determination would make up for the lack there. And I was not assessing things logically at that point. I was very much just, this is the time it's going to happen. I'm just going to make it happen.
Okay. Got it.
So what kind of elevation gain is this hike from where you were going to start to the summit?
I think
Do you
the
remember?
lodge is it at 8,000 feet?
Is that all? Because what's the mountain?
The
What's
mountain
summit?
is
The mountain's
close
just
to
under
12 or about
12.
Is it about 12? Okay.
And look it up.
Yeah, I was just looking up. You can look up Timberline Lodge elevation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think
So you
I think
parked
the
there.
climb, you do about 3,000 to 4,000 feet.
That'll get
I
you.
actually don't remember right now.
That's a pretty big elevation gain for a day hike. Okay, so you park at Timberline. You're getting ready to go up, and you wake up. What's the weather like? Is it bad out? Is it clear?
So-
and when do you decide? Okay, I'll make the approach.
Well, so I went to sleep in the car at the base. Okay, so it's 8,540 feet elevation.
Timberline Lodge.
The entire mountain, or from Timberline?
Timberline Lodge
Timberline's
is
at
8,000.
Maybe
Okay.
page. Anyway, I camped in the truck that my friend had lent me the night before and was just there in the parking lot and slept. And before I went to sleep, I said like the only prayer that I had said the entire time, which was just wake me up when it's time to climb. And I woke up at about 2 o'clock, which is the perfect climbing hour. And I went right back to sleep because I was tired and it was cold and
Sure.
I was not in a listening mood. And so then the next time I woke up, it was really late. It was past 9 o'clock. And by the time I got onto the mountain, it was past 10 o'clock as far as just getting all my gear together, going and registering at the lodge. I think I actually started climbing by 10:30. So really, really bad timing because the sun's already up.
man.
And I took a picture from the base of the mountain. And in my memory, it was absolutely perfect, clear skies, beautiful day. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. In the picture, there's this lenticular cloud whipping around the top of the mountain, which is usually your tell that there's going to be a weather change fairly shortly. And I did not see it, despite having climbed in the mountains and understanding the weather patterns and knowing kind of what the clouds are telling you.
Sure.
I was just blind to it. And that's been something I've thought about before or a lot since then, is just the places in scripture where either God shuts a person's eyes so they don't see something, or he opens them so that they see something they didn't notice before. And it was just really humbling to realize that a lot of what I thought was my own good wood sense and outdoor sense was actually more God's mercy and his
Sure.
partnership with me. And that when he removed that from me, I was pretty dumb. I was not paying attention. I did not see what I should have been seeing, and I didn't respond to it appropriately.
So at this time, are you worried at all that you're getting a later start? Do you still think you'll be able to summit in time?
Again, I was just in this very bullheaded, not taking no for an answer. And so
Gotcha.
I knew that I was in a bad position. Like I knew it was a bad time to start. I knew that I was under equipped. I was actually avoiding the main climbing track because of that, because I didn't want to get any flack from other climbers who were actually equipped for this climb. And there were a few that were going up the main track. And so I actually cut to the side of that and just went up under the ski lifts that the resort wasn't, only the lower part of the resort was running at the time. And once I made it up past the lower ski lift, I had it all to myself and was just using that as my track going up the mountain because I didn't want to deal with the other climbers.
Okay, so at this point, do you see many other people? You said you had it to yourself. Do you see any signs at this point, or did you meet anyone along the way where you're like, well, maybe I should, like you said, you're kind of bullheaded at this point. You were determined to get up there. Did you feel like with the weather maybe changing?
Yeah, when I got up to the very last cat shed above the ski runs there, I sat down for a breather, and there was this guy who had these separatable snowboard ski things. He was coming up on
I've seen those.
skins. And so he got up to me, and he was going to snowboard down. And, he kind of was like, hey, you going up? And I was like, oh, yeah, And he goes, looks like there's a whiteout rolling in. I was like, oh, it might blow over. I'm just going to see how far I can go. And he kind of gives me this look, and I was like, not going to pay attention to you. And then this other guy was coming down the mountain. And by this time, there was bad weather setting in, and I was just blinded. I mean, it was starting to blow. There was ice and sleet coming in. There was a whiteout rolling up. And this guy's coming down the mountain, and he's all bundled up. And this guy's like, hey, what are the conditions up there? And he goes, terrible. They're icy and windy and awful. I'm getting off. And he kind of looks at me, and I just look away. And it's like, okay, well, be safe. And he clicks his skis together and takes off. And that was the last person I talked to for the rest of the week.
Wow.
Until. Yeah.
So you could say you have summit fever at this point, just taking all these clues and hints and
I was
disregarding them.
Totally blinded.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. Mm-hmm. So this guy goes down the mountain, and you keep pressing on. What's going on with your visibility? Yeah. What's going on with visibility actually? And I'd love to hear what you're thinking at this point.
Yeah, this part of the climb it's very vivid in my memory, because I was walking up over these ice sheets where the wind had been just whipping across, and there are all these weird patterns in the ice, and there were these formations of ice that had been created by the wind. And this whiteout did roll in really quickly right after that guy took off down the mountain. And so I was in just kind of this semi-visibility where sometimes I maybe had 20 feet, sometimes I had maybe 20 meters, and then sometimes it was so close it was like 10 feet in front of me. And so I'd be walking, and the cloud would kind of shift, and I'd see this weird ice sculpture kind of come out of the blur, and then I'd keep going, and then there'd be this other one over here, and it was just very surreal, very alien landscape. And part of that, I was also just focusing on continuing going up. I had a vague idea of where I was on the mountain, because I knew that I was going to have Hell's Kitchen to the left of me, and I could smell the sulfur. I knew that the fumaroles were there, so I knew I was kind of in the right location. And moving up the glacier between the Hogsback Ridge, where you have Hell's Kitchen and all these fumaroles, and I'm not actually sure what that glacier is called, but you kind of take to the left of Hogsback Ridge and then climb to the ridge, and then take the ridge up to the summit. There's a final traverse and then a summit ascent. And so I was coming up along that area there, and there was a point where the wind was blowing so hard, and there were these drifts that just kind of were popping up in front of me, where I'd be walking, and all of a sudden I'd be knee deep instead of ankle deep. And so then I try to kind of work my way around out of that area. And one time I came up over this drift, and there's this huge blue pool of sulfury hot water, and it just very surreal. And so I was just kind of working my way up blindly, knowing that I need to get up and I need to then work my way left to the ridge. And it finally got so close that the visibility had probably dropped down to like 5 to 10 feet. I was totally socked in. And so I was just working my way up the glacier, and there came a point where I looked up and the fog rolled back for a minute, and there was just this sheer face of black rock in front of me. So I'd come up underneath the summit ridge, and there's a really difficult rock climbing route you can take up that, but I was not equipped for that. And that was kind of the reality check where I realized, okay, I've gone too far up where I was supposed to cut over to the Hogsback Ridge. I was overcorrecting to not get too close to all the fumaroles. And my hands were freezing. I had really not good gloves for what I was doing. And I was also just soaked and wet and cold. And I was also realizing it was probably way later than I had expected it to be, just fighting my way up through the drifts and the ice and stuff. And so that was where I was kind of like, okay, I got to turn around, and finally just gave up that pig-headed, like, gonna make this happen.
Yeah.
And, obviously far too late for any good to me. But so that's when I turned around and I realized that my tracks had been erased by the wind and the snow at that point, so I didn't have my own tracks to follow back. And it was also I was so sucked in that it was almost like walking in the dark. Like it was just this murky gray all around me, but I couldn't tell which way was up and which way was down. And so I started down, but I was also trying to make sure I didn't drift too far to my now downward left into a glacier and canyon down there that has claimed a number of lives and was something that somebody had warned me about, and so it was kind of there in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. And so instead I overcorrected and I actually went over the ridge of the Hogsback and down the other side, and there's a chute that is actually right under the final traverse. And I actually ended up going down that chute, which is really sketchy.
All right, guys, and that will come to a close for this episode. As you can tell, Mary's journey on Mount Hood is just getting started, and the danger is only beginning to unfold. So come back next week. We decided to break this into a two-parter. That way we can get the whole story so you guys can hear the whole thing, because we didn't want to cut anything out. We thought this is such a good story. We've got to get the whole thing going. So come back next week. And you don't want to miss the dramatic rescue. You don't want to miss how she got home. I'm telling you, it's going to be awesome. And it's episode 50. Let's go. Super stoked. I didn't think we'd make it here. So very pumped. Thank you guys for the support.